This is Ryan Abraham, Chris Trevino, USCFootball.com. Instant analysis of spring football day 2, Chris. As you and me do an instant, we've done it a couple of times before, I think.
I'm terrified.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen, so let's see.
You always are. He's like, should we prepare? No, why would we want to do that? We do have some breaking news coming out of spring ball practice number 2. Kicker Alex Stadhouse, who went in the portal, and then Parker Lewis went in the portal. He came out of the portal, and now he's a scholarship kicker for USC.
Yeah, I mean, that's a guy who, you need after losing, a talented and experienced guy like Parker Lewis. Stadhouse is the only kicker on the roster who has college experience. He's made college field goals, and that is one of the big boosts you get as a college kicker. And he said, it was a crazy week when he went in. That was a crazy process of going in and out. But, Lincoln sat him down and said, we need you. You're what we want. You're the right fit. And he ended up getting a scholarship. So kudos to him. He's a good kid, a good speaker, and, looking forward to him being – right now he's the favorite to be that starting kicker given his experience and only going up against another a walk-on in Dennis Lynch. So he has that advantage right now. We haven't seen much kicking. We don't see that much. But, spring is kind of a time you get to work out kinks and stuff like that. So we'll probably see that more in the spring game. See a little bit more of those guys get in action. But, yeah, kudos to him for, pulling in a scholarship.
I do like that his action came when he didn't even know he was going to start. 1 or 2 games where he came in there and they just threw him in because Parker Lewis couldn't go for some reason. We also heard after practice that offensive lineman Ty Buchanan is in the NCAA transfer portal. Wasn't here at practice Tuesday or today. Any thoughts on Buchanan?
Yeah, we're talking about a guy who gets a scholarship, and then you have one who's leaving a scholarship behind in Ty Buchanan, a 3-star signee out of that 2021 class out of Texas. He's a big physical kid, 6'5", 6'6". He looked really impressive when he first got here, but just didn't seem to kind of break into that 2-deep lineup. Mainly was on the reserves. I'd heard some smoke in the winter that, look out for Ty Buchanan. It's possibly a guy who's maybe, is going to step away from the program, into the portal. So that ended up being the case. We did not see him at Tuesday practice. Noticed it even more today because those lineman numbers are a little thin right now. He's the 3rd offensive lineman that has transferred out of here, Casey Collier and Liam Douglas. And they're also losing, obviously, 2 starters in Jalen McKenzie and Liam Jimmons. So big hole right now in terms of that depth. So that is a little bit of a blow. They have some of their guys back healthy again, like a Mason Murphy, a Caden Steffens, but, that is a hit to the depth. So we'll have to monitor that moving forward. And like Lincoln said on Tuesday, double-digit additions, just making more room.
Yeah, we get to see the first 20 minutes or so of practice, but the offensive linemen are pretty much over in the far corner. We can roam a lot more now, but I'll have to kind of watch those, but the numbers over there aren't great. We did get the defensive players. On Tuesday we got the offensive players and coaches. Today it was defensive players and coaches, and you got to talk to the main one, Alex Grinch. What did he have to say?
Yeah, obviously this is the practice debut of Grinch. We've heard him speak before, but this is the first time we got him out on the field, out behind that tarp. And, it was pretty much like a defensive coordinator. You ask him a question, he gives you a really detailed, long answer. You really have to pick what he's saying. But I asked him a loaded question. I asked, do you have any strengths, or what are your strengths right now? And he, like any coach in America, would say, well, that's something it's day 2 of spring. We still have to evaluate that and look forward. He said, I see a lot of weaknesses right now, so we have to fix those. We have to get those down. But he said, you see flashes here and there. You see guys, in a winter workout or in lifting or out on the field in the practice film, guys who flash speed, who flash skill. You just need to make that more consistent, and it needs to be not just in 2 guys, but all 11 guys. So they're still looking for that. Like he said, a lot of weaknesses to cover. But he did kind of shout out a couple guys. Kalen Bullock, is a guy who's back, got that skill, has that experience. You can tell he's a little bit more confident now in those meeting rooms now that he has a season to his name. And then he also shouted out Big Tuli Tuipulotu, the big guy. He said everyone gets a fresh start, but sometimes when you look at a guy who's flashing so much, you're like, oh, there's a reason why. He's probably going to be the number 1 for us. And obviously Tuli, along with some of those guys like Nick Figueroa, have been up there consistently with the ones, or at least what we see in the pursuit drills, which is sort of a team period sort of deal. But, Tuli, obviously that's a rock for you guys, a rock for the defense. That's someone you got to build around, especially up front in a position where you're lacking some depth. So those are 2 guys he shouted out. But again, early spring, early defensive coordinator speak, got a lot of work to do.
Right. I got to talk to linebackers coach Brian Odom a little bit about what was going on there. I cut the tail end because I was talking to another player, but he talked about they have to get better at everything. And it was following up like, hey, what do you got? Like, what are some of the things you have to get better at? And he's like, literally everything, like he said tying your shoes, they have to get better at. Obviously, this is a position group that's been underperforming for the last several years. And, they might not look at a ton of film, but it seems like, Odom knew that like this was not a group that was performing up to snuff. He talked a little about Raylan Goforth coming back. Rajon Davis, I got to ask about him because a lot of people are interested in that. But just seems like he's had meeting with these guys. He's talked to them, but he knows this position group needs to get better. So it's one of those things. I think a lot of fans, Chris, are looking at the linebackers, going, "Hey, what's going on here? Are these guys going to step up at some point?"
Yeah, and that's also another position where it feels like they could bring some more people in. That's a position that has some depth issues, but it seems like Coach Odom is going to be leaning on the veteran guys, like a Shane Lee. Obviously, he's, as we've expected, up there with the top groups. Raylan Goforth, a returning starter, he is also up there with the top groups. But Chris Thompson Jr., a guy who's shifted down from safety to a linebacker role, I also got to talk to Coach Grinch about him. He said that's a guy, who we think who's best suited for the linebacker spot. And it's kind of a double need because, like I just mentioned, they need bodies there, and that's a guy in the spring. You just need some bodies to get through spring sometimes. So that's a guy they shifted down, and he said, that's something we're going to be evaluating as we move forward. But yeah, the linebacker position, maybe like the key to being a successful defense here in 2022 because they really have underperformed, really been inconsistent. So, they're hoping that Shane Lee, built by Bama, as Alabama Twitter has reminded us several times, can help stabilize that a little bit more.
I did get to talk to Shane Lee. He made an appearance on Trojans Live. When was that?
Earlier this week.
Earlier this week. The time's just gonna fly by. So I was on the SEC beat today because I got to talk to Shane Lee, the former Alabama linebacker, and then Romello Height, the
straight yoke.
Yeah, from Auburn. So we had the Auburn Alabama connection there. Both of those guys are first dudes off the bus. They looked the part. Shane was pretty reserved with it in his comments and stuff, just about coming in and his leadership. He loves California. Both of the guys loved living in California. He's talking about the scenery and everything. So they seem to be guys that didn't mind coming west. Romello Height was he said, I dreamed about coming to California when he was a kid. And he got to go to Hollywood. He got to go to the beach. He's never been to the beach. So there was some cool kind of stuff there. But, for Shane Lee, I think the leadership aspect of what Lee's bringing to the table, and he wasn't coming in I'm not coming in trying to be a leader. I think when we talked to Caleb Williams, it was he's trying to be a leader out there. And Lee just seems like he's a guy that's coming in and just, hey, whatever's asked of me, this is what I'm going to do. And it's just a no-nonsense, tough, gritty guy. He's going to be the middle linebacker. He's just going to do whatever is asked of him. And I think that's probably what USC needs right now.
Absolutely. Leadership, that is what Brian Odom has talked about when he did his assistants media day, and then Lincoln Riley even talked about it on that Tunnel Vision show you just mentioned. Tunnel Vision. No.
Trojan Vision.
Trojan Vision, whatever. I'm getting
Trojans Live.
Trojans Live. We're getting it all mixed up.
I screwed it up, sorry.
But even Lincoln Riley, he talked about that and how Shane Lee reminds him of when they brought Jalen Hurts over from Alabama to Oklahoma for that one season. He sort of is similar in that sense where he kind of stepped up and he was an immediate impact player as a leader off the field, kind of doing the little things, in the weight room, in training, in practice habits, stuff like that. So obviously USC needs that in droves. They need all that, that experience and that leadership they can get. So obviously a guy like Shane is double impactful, not just for what he can be on the field, but also off the field as well. Yeah,
both those guys, I think we talked to them about when they hit the portal and when they got to USC, it was pretty much immediate. There was just, it was hours or whatever before. And when you talk about speed, as far as how fast you're going to get out of the portal and commit to USC or sign with USC, Romello Height, when they were talking about him, they really like his speed. He's going to be rush end. He looks the part. Just being up next to him, another first off the bus kind of guy. But they really liked his speed, and I think that's something that USC is going to need. If you can be someone that's opposite, like a Corey Foreman on one side, I think that would be a great 1-2 punch.
Yeah, and speaking of guys that were just snatched up out of the portal super quickly, I got to talk to some of the defensive backs that have been added. Latrell McCutcheon, who was at Oklahoma, he transferred out. He's here now, obviously. And then Makai Blackman, the Colorado transfer, who's here now. Makai, he's kind of in a similar position to Shane, as he has a lot of experience with a really young position group. He said they're young, but they're hungry, and he's sort of filling that role as the leader. He says he's got a great relationship with Dante Williams. A lot of schools wanted him, TCU, Baylor, those kind of schools hit him up, but he said USC was the one I liked most, so I decided to come out here. He is a NorCal native, so got to stay a little bit closer to home. And then McCutcheon, I talked about him. He's obviously played in this defense before. He's coming from that Oklahoma system over here with Grinch and them. And he said, and I asked him, if you don't know much about this defense, what can you tell us about this defense? And he said, it's aggressive. We're going to be in your face. We're not going to back down from anyone. So, those are things USC fans like to hear as a defense that backed down from a lot of people last season. So I think that's going to put a smile on some of their faces. But, yeah, those guys are really excited to be here, really excited to be in California. McCutcheon probably not going to win over a lot of USC fans because he is a Whataburger person. He said he doesn't even like In-N-Out. He doesn't even know why there's a comparison, but it's Whataburger all day. And I have to ask that question to every Texas player. So how to get that in there?
Nice. Well, that's we got a good amount of interviews with new coaches and new players and some of the existing players and stuff. We'll have all of that up on USCFootball.com. But before we go, any thoughts, Chris, on what we saw out in day two? We got limited, but what we saw.
Can I just run through some injuries real quick?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Obviously, those are big updates, but not a lot of rehab island guys, but it was pretty much similar to what we saw on Tuesday. The big offensive tackle, Bobby Haskins, he was still chilling on the sideline. Did not see Lake McCree out there. He sat out on Tuesday, but he wasn't even out there today, maybe doing some rehab. Damani Jackson, Joshua Jackson, Kobe Pepe, the defensive lineman, Britton Allen, they were all doing their rehab sessions. As we said, that usually means they're close to coming back, so we'll have to see that. Michael Jackson, the third, did not do rehab today. He was back in with the wide receiver, so he is off rehab island.
We're at number 13, right?
Yes, correct. He is back into the fold. And then Corey Foreman, the other big name opposite of Haskins, he did not participate today. I didn't see him do rehab. I didn't really see him do warm-ups, but I did see him go into the back with a staffer over to rehab island. And I did not see him for the rest of practice, or the 20 minutes we saw. So he's still doing rehab. And again, Lincoln said, expect to see him at some point here doing a full practice, but it's not today.
Yeah, Michael Jackson did get to watch some of him catching the football. I forgot about the beginning of practice. We did get to watch some. Caleb Williams, Miller Moss still throwing the football. We get to watch the routes on air. It was fun to see the coaches be very active. Lincoln Riley trying to force fumbles, and Kyle McDonald had one of those sticks with the pads on it, poking it in there. So there, and you got big Zach Hansen's standing up there. He's 6'8", trying to get the ball thrown over him. So they were really active and trying to be defenders, I guess you could say, when they were throwing on air. But the guys out there, they're just catching balls from the quarterbacks. It was, whatever. It's nice to see. We get to see Caleb Williams throw the ball. I like I said on Tuesday, I like the way it pops out of his hand. Anything you saw on the defensive side?
No, pretty much saw some new drills. Some drills with the defensive backs where they pitted them against each other and had them strike each other back and forth down the thing. Dante Williams was really into that drill. A lot of cursing over there. Watched some ball skill drills. Latrell McCutcheon made a really nice diving catch, and that really got Alex Grinch hyped up. He liked that effort. He liked to see that. When a guy dropped a ball, he was the first on him to say, you got to finish. That's an easy catch. You got to finish. So watching those guys was fun, and up close too. Didn't have to watch them from all the way at the other side of the field. But there's a lot of talented skill players or guys that can catch the ball in that safety group. So expect some picks this season. I'm just saying that, Jalen Smith, Kalen Bullock, Latrell McCutcheon, he was playing safety today. He's normally a cornerback, played cornerback at Oklahoma, but they've had him playing a little safety in the first 2 days of practice. So a lot of skill, a lot of range over there.
Nice. All right, well, I think that'll wrap it up. We got some shadows coming in as the sun is setting here. So sorry if our lighting changed during the instant analysis. But for Chris Trevino, I'm Ryan Abraham, USCFootball.com instant analysis. Hope you guys enjoyed this little segment of what's going on in practice number 2, and we'll talk to you next time.